Earlier in this section, you had a quick glimpse of IQueryable. IQueryable is an interface that derives from IEnumerable. What is IEnumerable? It's an interface that represents any objects that can be enumerated. In simple, pragmatic terms, that means we can iterate over them using a for each block. In C#, strings are enumerable because we can do a for each on a string and get access to every character. Other examples include arrays, lists, dictionaries. All these are enumerable objects. So IQueryable derives from IEnumerable, and essentially anything that is queryable is also enumerable. So we can iterate over them using a for each block. That's why we could iterate over our courses variable and display them on the console. Now you might be wondering, what is the difference between IQueryable and IEnumerable? IQueryable allows queries to be extended without being immediately executed. Let's do a quick experiment and see this in action. Okay, so back here in Visual Studio, I'm going to access context.courses. Now this is a DB set of course, and DB set class implements IQueryable interface. So I can store the result in a variable of type IQueryable. Note that this interface is defined in system.link.iQueryable. So we need to resolve it here. Next, I want to filter these courses and get only courses in level 1. So I'm going to declare another variable, filtered equals courses that were. And finally, we will iterate over this filtered variable and display the courses on the console. Now I'm going to run the application and then inspect the query in SQL Profiler. So let's run the application. Okay, we have 4 courses in level 1. And now let's go to SQL Profiler. Okay, here's the query. So select, here are the columns from courses where level is 1. So note that the filter is part of the query. And that's because here we are using IQueryable. So in the next line where I call the where method, my query, my original query in this case, all courses will be extended to only include those in level 1. Now let's see what happens if I replace IQueryable with IEnumerable. Note that this interface is defined in system.collections.generic. All right. Now, before running the application, I'm going to go to SQL Profiler and clean up the existing queries. Now back here, run the application. So we got the same result, 4 courses in level 1. But let's look at the query that was run behind the scene. So back here, look at the query. We don't have the where clause here. It's only select from courses. What this means is we're going to get all courses in the database, even if there are a billion of those courses, load them into memory, and then apply the filter. So back here, the reason for that is when you use IEnumerable, you cannot extend a query. So in this case, here is my original query, context.courses. So when this query is executed, in this case, when we get to the for each block, first we are going to get all courses from the database, and then this method will be called. So that's the difference between IQueryable and IEnumerable. Now, in case you're curious, let me show you how IQueryable allows you to extend queries. So I'm going to clean up everything here. I declare an IEnumerable, of course, and call this variable x. It's just for demonstration. Now x dot. Look at the extension methods here. For example, let's take a look at where. This method takes a func of source and bool. It gets a delegate. So remember, link extension methods on IEnumerable expect a func or a delegate. Now look at IQueryable. So I'm going to change this to IQueryable. Now look at where. Here we have 4 overloads. The first 2, which are inherited from IEnumerable, expect a func. But the last 2 expect an expression. And this is all the power behind composing queries. An expression is an object that simply represents an expression without executing it. When we have an IQueryable interface and we use the where method or any other link extension methods, and we supply a lambda expression like course goes to level equals 1, this expression is not executed. It's simply stored in an expression object. And later, when we call another method like dot order by, supply another expression, again, this expression is not executed. It's simply stored in an expression object. Later, when this query variable is going to be executed, all these expressions will be compiled, translated into SQL code, and run all together against the database. That's why earlier when I used IQueryable and used where, you saw the where clause in the query. But when we use IEnumerable, look at the extension methods. They expect a func, a delegate. So this expression is stored in a delegate and called immediately. Then we get to this method, again another expression, similarly gets called immediately. So we cannot compose expressions and store them in a structure called expression tree. So that was the reason why when you use IQueryable interface, you can compose queries, you can extend them, but with IEnumerable, you cannot. And that brings us to the end of this lecture. I hope you enjoyed and thank you for watching.